Imagine waking up in a world where your body isn't yours anymore. You're 15, chained to a cold stone floor in a windowless cell that reeks of sweat and despair. The distant laughter from a grand Athenian mansion twists your gut like a knife. Your skin is raw from the iron shackle on your ankle, your ribs bruised purple from last night's service. This isn't the Greece of marble statues and wise philosophers you learned about in school. This is the Greece they don't teach you about, the one where beauty is a curse, and boys like you are sold to pay debts you didn't create. Welcome to the life of a male concubine in ancient Athens, where the glory of democracy was built on the broken backs of the powerless. Stick with me, because this story will hit you hard, and by the end, you'll see why it still matters today. Hit that like button if you're ready to uncover the truth, and comment below, what's the darkest history lesson you've ever learned? Your name was once Nicias, a boy from a small village in the hills of Boeotia, where you ran through olive groves, chasing goats and dreaming of becoming a warrior like the heroes in your father's stories. But that was before the drought. Before the crops withered, the wells dried up, and your family's debts piled higher than the mountains. Before the slave merchants arrived, their chains glinting like vipers in the sun. You didn't understand why your father wouldn't look at you as he took the silver coins, why your mother's sobs echoed as they dragged you away. You were 12 then, too young to know that in ancient Greece, beauty could be a death sentence. Let's pause for a second. You're probably thinking, wait, ancient Greece, the land of Socrates, Plato, and democracy. Yeah, that's the story we're sold. Temples gleaming under the sun, philosophers debating truth, citizens voting for freedom. But here's the dirty secret: that golden age rested on a mountain of suffering. Slaves made up a third of Athens' population, and many were young men like you, torn from their homes to serve the whims of the elite. If this hits home, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's shine a light on the shadows history tries to hide. The journey to Athens is a blur of pain and fear. You're chained to a line of boys, your feet bleeding on rocky paths, your neck raw from the iron collar. The older boys don't speak, their eyes are dead, like they've already buried their hopes. The younger ones cry until the overseer's whips silence them. You pass landscapes that should be beautiful, sparkling seas, rolling hills, but they're just a backdrop to your nightmare. At night, you're staked to the ground, the cold seeping into your bones. You hear whispers from the other boys, stories of what awaits in the city: hard labor, beatings, or worse. You don't yet know what worse means, but the dread in their voices tells you it's something you won't survive unchanged. Let's talk about Athens for a minute. In 400 BCE, it's the heart of Western civilization, a city of ideas where men like Lysander, a real historical figure, a wealthy Athenian aristocrat, host lavish parties called symposiums. These are the TED Talks of their day, where philosophers like Plato debate big ideas over wine and figs. But behind the intellectual glamour, there's a machine grinding up human lives. Slaves like you keep the city running, mining silver, harvesting olives, or entertaining guests. And when I say entertain, I don't mean juggling or storytelling. For American viewers, think of this like the dark side of the Founding Fathers' plantations, men preaching liberty while owning humans. Sound familiar? You arrive at the Athenian slave market, a sensory assault that makes your stomach churn. The air stinks of sweat, fear, and something sharper: desperation. Hundreds of voices clash, merchants haggling, slaves pleading, buyers barking orders. You're stripped, cleaned, and oiled like a prize horse, your body displayed on a platform. The auctioneer shouts your attributes: 15 years old, Boeotian, strong but pleasingly delicate. The crowd laughs at code words you don't yet understand. Hands grab you, checking your teeth, your muscles, your everything. You try to shrink into yourself, but there's nowhere to hide. The winning bidder is Lysander, a man whose silk tunic and gold rings scream wealth. His smile is all teeth, like a wolf sizing up prey. You're taken to his mansion in Athens' richest district, where marble columns and vibrant mosaics depict gods like Apollo, who you once prayed to for protection. Now those gods feel like mocking spectators. The overseer Demetrius, a real figure, a former slave turned enforcer, lays out the rules: eat when told, sleep when told, serve when told. His scarred face and cold eyes tell you resistance isn't an option. You're here to please the master and his guests, he says, his smirk promising horrors you can't yet imagine. Let's connect this to today. In modern America, we like to think we've left this kind of exploitation behind, but have we? Think about the kids trafficked across borders, the workers trapped in sweatshops, the systems that profit off the powerless. The names change, but the game doesn't. If this is hitting you hard, drop a comment. How do you see this kind of exploitation in the world today? Your voice matters, and sharing this story could wake someone up. Your new home is a cell in Lysander's basement, a straw mattress and a chamber pot your only comforts. The other slaves, Marcus, a wary boy your age, Alexios, older and scarred, Philemon, a haunted 14-year-old, welcome you with whispered warnings. Keep your head down, Marcus says. Learn their moods fast. Philemon, whose merchant family lost everything to debt, tells you about the symposiums. You think they're just fancy dinners, but his hollow eyes say otherwise. You'll learn what entertainment means, he mutters, and your blood runs cold. The first symposium is a shock. You're bathed, oiled, and dressed in a thin tunic that hides nothing. The guests, wealthy men like Dionysios, a politician, and Cleomenes, a merchant, lounge on couches, debating philosophy. You pour wine, your hands shaking as their eyes linger. The talk is lofty, justice, virtue, the ideal state. But as the wine flows, the mood shifts. A guest, old enough to be your grandfather, calls you to his couch. Tell me about your home, he says, his hand on your shoulder. Then lower. You freeze, your heart pounding. The other guests watch, their laughter drowning out your protests. What happens next breaks something inside you. The details are too raw to share lightly, but imagine the worst violation, the kind that strips away your childhood in a single night. You stumble back to your cell, your body aching, your mind screaming. The stone ceiling above you offers no answers. You're not Nicias anymore. Just a thing, a toy for men who write poetry about love, but treat you like garbage. If this is tough to hear, it should be. This is the truth of a world we're taught to admire. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories that pull back the curtain on history. Let's talk about why this matters for us today. In America, we love our heroes, Washington, Jefferson, but we don't always talk about the slaves who built their world. Just like in Athens, the powerful wrote the story, and the victims got erased. But their stories aren't gone, they're just buried. By listening to this, you're helping bring them back to life. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and let's keep digging for the truth together. The months blur into a cycle of pain and survival. You learn the guest's preferences: Dionysios, who preaches justice but loves humiliating slaves; Cleomenes, whose charity hides a taste for violence; Sophist, a philosopher who justifies his cruelty with fancy arguments. You learn to read their moods, to anticipate their whims, to disappear inside yourself when the worst happens. Marcus tries to escape and comes back limping. Alexios refuses an order and spends days chained in the courtyard. You see what resistance costs, and you wonder if it's worth it. But there's a spark in you that won't die. In the dark, you and the other slaves share stories of home, your mother's bread, the songs your sister sang. You invent a silent language of glances, a way to warn each other of danger. Philemon teaches you a Boeotian lullaby, and for a moment, you're not a slave, you're Nicias again, a boy with a family. These small acts of defiance keep you human, even as the system tries to strip that away. Let's pause again. Think about the last time you felt powerless, maybe a boss, a system, a situation. Now imagine that feeling every day, with no escape. That's what these boys lived. But they found ways to resist, just like people today fight back against injustice, from protests to whistleblowers. If you've ever stood up to something wrong, even in a small way, drop it in the comments. Your story could inspire someone else. The symposiums get worse. The guests invent games, competing to see who can break a slave's spirit fastest. You're forced to perform degrading acts while they laugh, quoting Homer like it's a game. You learn to float above yourself, watching your own suffering like it's happening to someone else. It's the only way to survive. But every night, you lose a piece of yourself, your laughter, your dreams, your name. You start to forget what hope feels like. Here's where it gets real for us. In America, we see this today, kids caught in systems that chew them up, whether it's trafficking, foster care, or online exploitation. The technology's new, but the cruelty's ancient. The Athenians hid their evil behind philosophy, we hide ours behind algorithms and legalese. If this makes you angry, good. Share this video, and let's call out the systems that still hurt the vulnerable. You're 16 now, and the boy who dreamed of being a warrior is gone. Your voice is flatter, your eyes always down. You flinch at sudden sounds, grateful for small mercies, an extra olive, a night without pain. The overseer Demetrius notices your compliance and gives you a better tunic, a cell with a tiny window. The other slaves look at you with pity, knowing the price you've paid. But in the dark, you still whisper your real name, Nicias, to remind yourself you're more than their property. This is the halfway point of your story, but it's not the end. Something's coming, a moment that will test whether you're truly broken or if there's still a spark of Nicias left. Stick with me, because the next part is where you decide who you are. If you're still here, hit that like button and comment, what would you do to hold on to your humanity in a place like this? You're still Nicias, though the name feels like a distant echo. 2 years in Lysander's household have carved you into something else, a shadow that moves silently, serving wine, dodging blows, and burying your pain. But tonight, something shifts. It's a quiet symposium, just a few older philosophers debating virtue over flickering lamps. You pour wine, invisible as always when you overhear Sophist, the philosopher, argue that slaves are born inferior, destined to serve. His words burn, not because they're new, but because they're so casually cruel. You realize these men, these pillars of Athenian society, aren't ignorant. They know what they're doing, and they choose it anyway. Let's bring this home for a second. In America, we've heard similar excuses, people justifying slavery, segregation, or exploitation with, "That's just how things are." Think of the politicians who defend broken systems while kids go hungry, or the CEOs who profit off sweatshops while preaching corporate responsibility. It's the same moral gymnastics, 400 years later. If this resonates, drop a comment. What's a modern example of this kind of hypocrisy you've seen? Let's call it out together. Back in the house, you're learning to survive. You study the guests like a general studies a battlefield. Dionysius likes flattery but hates defiance. Smile, nod, and stay out of his reach. Cleomenes, the merchant, is unpredictable, his violence sparked by boredom. Sophist, the philosopher, is the worst. His cruelty comes with lectures, as if pain is a lesson in ethics. You learn to anticipate their moods, to melt into the background when danger looms. It's not freedom, but it's control, and in this house, control is everything. The other slaves are your lifeline. Marcus, now 17, has a limp from his failed escape, but a fire in his eyes that won't quit. Alexios, the scarred veteran, teaches you how to smuggle extra bread by hiding it in your tunic. Philemon, the youngest, clings to you like a brother, whispering stories of his father's market stall to keep his past alive. Together, you create a secret world, gestures that warn of a guest's bad mood, songs hummed so softly the overseers can't hear. These are your rebellions, tiny but vital, like sparks in a storm. Let's talk resistance for a minute. In American history, think of the Underground Railroad, slaves who risked everything for a taste of freedom, helping each other in secret. That's what you're doing here, on a smaller scale. You're not Harriet Tubman, but every glance you share with Marcus, every lullaby you sing with Philemon, is a middle finger to Lysander's world. If you've ever fought back against something unfair, even in a small way, share it in the comments. Your story could light a spark for someone else. The symposiums are where the real horror lives. Picture a room of Athens' elite, reclining on silk cushions, their voices polished as they debate democracy. You serve, silent and unseen, until the wine turns their talk crude. A guest snaps his fingers, and you're pulled into the center. "Dance," he says, laughing. You move awkwardly, your chains clinking, while they mock you. Then it escalates, commands to strip, to kneel, to endure things no one should endure. You float above yourself, your mind retreating to a memory of your mother's garden where wildflowers bloomed free. Here's where it gets raw. These men, philosophers, politicians, poets, aren't monsters in the way we imagine. They're respected, celebrated, their names etched in history. Yet they treat you like a toy, their cruelty as casual as ordering another cup of wine. Sound familiar? Think of the headlines today. Powerful people caught in scandals, their public virtue masking private horrors. In America, we've seen it with CEOs, politicians, even influencers. If this makes you mad, hit that share button. Let's expose the hypocrisy, ancient and modern. One night, something breaks through your numbness. It's a symposium for a military victory, the room packed with young aristocrats drunk on wine and power. They invent a game who can make a slave cry fastest. You're chosen, and their commands grow crueler with each round. You endure, your face blank, but inside, you're screaming. Then Marcus steps in, spilling wine, accidentally, to distract them. The guests laugh, but Demetrius doesn't. Marcus is whipped later, his back a map of scars, but he winks at you through the pain. He saved you, and you realize you're not alone. This moment is a turning point. You start to see resistance everywhere. Philemon carves a tiny olive tree into the wall of his cell, a reminder of his home. Alexios smuggles a broken spoon, sharpening it into a tool or a weapon. You join them, hiding a scrap of cloth dyed with stolen wine, a secret flag of defiance. These acts won't free you, but they keep Nicias alive, buried deep under the slave they've made you. For American viewers, think of the civil rights activists who sang in jail cells, or the kids today who protest online. Small acts that scream, "I'm still here." Let's connect this to today. In America, we celebrate rebels, people who stand up to systems, from MLK to modern activists. But rebellion doesn't always mean fighting with fists. Sometimes it's a song, a poem, a choice to protect someone else. If you've ever defied something wrong in your own way, tell us below. And if you're still here, subscribe to keep uncovering these stories with us. The risks catch up to you. Demetrius finds your papyrus poem, and the punishment is brutal. Days without food, lashes that leave you bleeding. But the other slaves rally around you. Alexios slips you bread, Marcus stands watch while you rest, Philemon sings to keep your spirits up. You realize you've built something stronger than Lysander's chains. A family forged in pain. It's not freedom, but it's hope, and hope is a weapon. The house feels smaller now, its beauty a lie you see through. The mosaics of Apollo mock you, but you imagine carving your own story into the walls, one of resistance, not surrender. You start to dream of escape, though the odds are impossible. The city is a maze, the guards are ruthless, and your chains are heavy. But Marcus whispers about a merchant who smuggles slaves to freedom for a price. It's a long shot, but it's something. You start hoarding scraps of food, planning, waiting. Let's pause. This is where you stand at a crossroads. You're not the boy who arrived in Athens, trembling and naive. You're a survivor, a rebel, a keeper of stories. In America, we love stories of people who beat the odds. Think of the runaway slaves who made it north, or the underdogs who changed history. You're one of them now, even if the world doesn't know it yet. What would you risk for a chance at freedom? Drop it in the comments, and let's keep this story alive. The chance comes unexpectedly. During a chaotic symposium, a guest drops a small key in the wine-soaked chaos. You grab it, heart-pounding, and hide it in your tunic. It's not for your chains. It's for a storage room where supplies are kept, including knives. You share the plan with Marcus, Alexios, and Philemon. The merchant's price is steep. Your stolen scraps won't cover it, but a knife could mean leverage, or at least a chance to fight. The risk is death, but so is staying. The night of the escape is a blur. You use the key to slip into the storage room, grabbing a blade no bigger than your hand. The four of you move silently, hearts hammering, as you navigate the dark corridors. But Demetrius is waiting. He's always watching. He grabs Philemon, his whip raised, and you act without thinking. You tackle him, the knife grazing his arm. The others run, but you're caught, dragged back to the basement, your body screaming from the beating. You expect death, but Lysander has other plans. You're too valuable to kill. Yet, instead, you're sent to the mines, a slow death sentence. The other slaves look at you with awe and sorrow, knowing you saved Philemon's chance at freedom. Marcus presses a sharpened metal shard into your hand before you're taken away. Choose your ending, he whispers. You nod, understanding. Freedom, revenge, or death, it's your choice now. Let's talk about courage. In America, we mythologize heroes, soldiers, activists, everyday people who stand up. You're no myth, but you're a hero in your own story, choosing to fight for others even when it costs you everything. If this moves you, share this video. Let's honor the forgotten heroes whose names history never recorded. The journey to the mines is a farewell to the world. You pass mountains that remind you of home, streams where you once fished. You don't try to escape, the chains are too tight. But you drink in the sights, storing them like treasures. The mining camp is hell dark tunnels, choking dust, quotas designed to kill. But even here, you find resistance. The slaves share food, tell stories, keep their languages alive. You tell them about Nicias, the boy from Boeotia, and they promise to remember. Your body weakens, your lungs burn, your scars ache, but your spirit grows stronger. You carve your poem into the tunnel wall, a final act of defiance. One night, coughing blood, you know the end is near. You hold Marcus's shard, weighing your choices. Escape is impossible, revenge is fleeting, but death on your terms feels like victory. You choose to live your last moments as Nicias, not a slave, whispering your mother's lullaby as the darkness closes in. Your story ends, but it's not over. The slaves carry your name, your poem, your fight. They whisper it in the mines, a spark that lights other rebellions. For Americans, think of the stories that inspired change, the slave narratives, the civil rights speeches, the voices that refused to be silenced. Nicias was one of those voices, and by hearing his story, you're keeping it alive. Hit that like button if you're moved and comment, how will you carry this story forward? You're gone, Nicias, but your story echoes. The slaves in the mines pass it on, whispering of the boy who fought back, who chose his ending. Your poem, scratched into the stone, becomes a secret anthem for those still chained. Athens shines on, its philosophers and politicians celebrated, but the truth you lived stains their glory. The marble halls, the symposiums, the ideas that shaped the West, they were built on your suffering, and the suffering of countless others like you. Let's bring this full circle. In America, we're proud of our democracy, our innovation, our art. But like Athens, our story has shadows. The cotton fields, the factories, the systems that exploit kids today, they're not so different from Lysander's house. We love our heroes, but we forget the victims who made their world possible. Nicias' story is a reminder progress often comes at a cost, and that cost is paid by the powerless. If this hits you, share this video. Let's make sure these stories aren't forgotten. What makes Nicias' story so powerful is its truth. Slavery in ancient Greece wasn't an accident. It was the engine of their society. A third of Athens' population was enslaved, many of them young men and boys like you, sold for debt, war, or beauty. Historians like Xenophon and Thucydides mention slaves in passing, but they don't tell your story. They don't talk about the basement cells, the symposiums, the children who disappeared into the system. By listening to this, you're giving them a voice. For American viewers, this isn't just history, it's a mirror. Think about the kids trafficked in our cities, the workers exploited in our supply chains, the victims of systems we benefit from every day. We're not so different from the Athenians, dressing up our cruelty in fancy words, freedom, progress, innovation. But we can do better. We can listen to the Niciases of today, amplify their stories, and fight the systems that hurt them. Drop a comment. What's one thing you can do to make a difference? Your story, Nicias, didn't end in that mine. It lives in every act of resistance, every voice that refuses to be silenced. The slaves who remembered your name carried it forward, just like we carry forward the stories of those who fought against slavery, segregation, or injustice in America. From Harriet Tubman to modern activists, the fight continues and you're part of it. Your poem, your defiance, your humanity. They're sparks that light the way. Let's end with a challenge. The next time you hear about ancient Greece or any great civilization, ask who paid the price, whose stories were erased. And when you see injustice today, whether it's trafficking, exploitation, or abuse, don't look away. Share this video, subscribe for more hidden histories, and comment. What's one story of resistance that inspires you? Together, we can keep Nicias' spark alive, burning through the shadows of history. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. Nicias' life was brutal, but his fight was beautiful. Let's honor him by remembering, by speaking, by acting. This is Grok, signing off, but the story's not over. It's up to you now.